The sketchbook is out, you know what time it is. We just painted a horror for Halloween and Christmas is around the corner, so I thought we could paint a scene from my favourite Christmas film, Elf. Let me know down below what your favourite Christmas film is and let's get started. Even though it's dark and cold outside, I love having a candle out in those colder months. I think it gives such a cozy feel when you're painting. I've got my watercolor palette, some brushes, my sketchbook, and I'm picking out a washi tape. I haven't got any winter or Christmas themed washi tape, so the closest one that I could pick out was one that kind of looks like wrapping paper. For me, Elf is that comfort Christmas movie that I can put on and it will always make me feel cozy and warm and Christmassy. I really love it, but I think I've definitely watched it a little bit too much now. I watched it a couple of days ago and it doesn't make me laugh like it used to. I know all of the jokes off by heart and unfortunately I think it's ruined it a little bit. It's such a fantastic film though, and it will always be one of my favourites. The part that I really love is the beginning, the part in the North Pole, the design, the colours, the animations. I really wish that part was longer. When I was looking for a scene to paint, I knew that I wanted it to be one of those from the North Pole, and there were a lot that I could choose from. But whilst I was looking for a scene, I noticed just how short that part of the film is. It literally is like 5 minutes. The scene that I chose was Buddy the Elf sitting on Papa Elf's lap. I really love the colours in this scene and I love the background. I love that it looks like a painting to begin with. Because the scene is so overwhelmingly blue and unrealistic, I thought it would just pop really well being right next to the horror film that I painted last time, which was The Omen. I mean, those paintings being next to each other in this sketchbook, neither of them look realistic at all, considering the first few pages were like mostly greens and blues and landscapes. I've literally got a bright red and then a bright blue painting. The other scene I had considered is the part where Buddy is walking with the snowman, but that didn't have very much colour in it, so I preferred this one. There was so much from the North Pole that I could have chosen, really. I mean, there was lots from the entire film, but I knew I wanted it to be the beginning. There are so many funny parts to this film, and I think that's why it's one of my favourites. I love the montage where Buddy's exploring New York. When he runs around and around in the spinny doors and then gets hit by a car, I just find that hilarious every single time. I also like all the parts with Peter Dinklage. I think he plays the character so well. And the whole angry elf part is just hilarious. I probably have watched it too much though, I know every single joke off by heart. When I was a child, I always loved Will Ferrell's films. The comedy is so silly that it's great for children and families, but there's always some adult jokes in there which you then rewatch when you're older and it makes a lot more sense. And I like that with films when you watch something later on and it's like there's more jokes in there that you find funny. I always forget that Zooey Deschanel is in it because the blonde hair throws me every single time, but it actually suits her really well. I love Puppet Elf's character as well. I think that's so good. I think a lot of the characters in this movie are really good. This is a Jon Favreau film, which probably explains why it's so good. I must admit though, every time I see him in movies, I only see his character from Friends. That's literally what I recognise him from. Doesn't matter if he's in Iron Man or what he's in, I always see the character from Friends. Although I do feel like he tends to play quite similar characters in everything, to be honest. If you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend it. It's just a good feel-good Christmas movie. On to the scene in question now. When I started my art career and I started painting portraits for the first time, I did not think that I would be painting Will Ferrell. I never considered that as a possibility, but here we are. I really struggled with the faces, I'm not gonna lie. The expressions and the angles were really difficult, and also it was quite small on my page. Also, I'm kind of used to painting girls and I'm really not used to faces that have so much going on. It was really difficult and I'm not sure the likeness is there. I love the colour palette in this piece. I love all of the yellow and green elements. Especially on the clothing, there's such unique shades that I've not really painted before like this. I've gotten comfortable with my pinks, my purples, my blues, my reds, to the point that I barely use yellow and green anymore. I think green is my least used colour. Orange I don't really do at all, so this palette really pushed me to use different colours. I think I got the colours pretty close to the reference photo. But I also wanted to make sure that the scene was pastel and cute and that the characters didn't really stand out from the background. I wanted it to all look cohesive. The perspective was a little bit hard. Papa Elf is obviously very small and I think it just naturally looks weird. Even though it might be quite similar to the reference photo, it obviously just looks weird naturally. For the background, I mostly used indigo. I used a lot of really light layers that were virtually the same colour because I just wanted to make sure that I got it right and I didn't want to make it too dark too early. It's a very light scene that I wanted to try and get close enough and not change it too much to be my own style. And once I'd got that to a point that I was really happy with, I then focused a little bit more on the characters. I found the clothing really difficult to paint because it has a lot of folds. If there's something I have no experience with, it's folds on clothes. I've actually seen quite a few people here on YouTube practicing clothing and the folds on clothing and practicing like how to draw and paint it. Every time I watch those videos, it reminds me that that's something that I need to practice that I've never once in my life ever thought of. It's such an oddly specific thing, but in this case, I think it was so important. And I probably did blur a lot of the folds and make them a little bit more subtle, and I think that's kind of noticeable. I did struggle a bit with the hair as well because the hair is a lot lighter than you think. I painted the hair more of like a brunette, but honestly it was about the same tone as the skin tone, and I couldn't really make that work because I'd already done the skin tone and I presumed that his hair was brown. I think I made the hair a lot darker than it was supposed to be. I probably should have like left gaps, but I do think like it just would have looked odd being virtually the same color as the skin tone. Because it's actually like a kind of ashy blonde. I'm using my Princeton number 6 round brush and I tried to add as much detail as I possibly could with watercolor, but it did definitely get to the point where I felt like there wasn't much more that I could do with paint. It feels to me like the hot pressed etcher just can't handle as many layers as the cold pressed. I do notice this a lot in the scene series because I end up adding colour pencil more, but using colour pencil more was also one of my goals for this year, so I'm happy to add more, I'm happy to experiment, and I did really enjoy it. I think this colour pencil watercolour combo is perfect for adding those fine details that you just can't get to with a brush. I actually ended up using the colour pencil for the windows because there were like these perfect circles that I thought would just be so difficult with a paintbrush, and I tried to do the best I could with colour pencil and I think it was a lot easier than it would have been with a paintbrush. I didn't feel like there was much more I could add to the people, so I just used a white gel pen to add a little bit of highlight, and now we're peeling off the tape. For the scene series, I've had a really good system going with my tape peels, and so far every single one has been smooth, which is fantastic. It was at this point that I took photos of the finished result and realised I missed out some pretty essential parts. I missed out Buddy's belt. And I missed out all those details on the clothing, like the buttons down the middle. There's like this golden detailing across the edges. It's like embroidered or something, and I missed out everything. So I decided to just go back in and add all of that. I used watercolor to make the folds a little bit darker as well because I feel like that was definitely lost. And I'm using the metallic watercolor to just add those little detailings in, and I feel like this really perfects the piece. I'm so happy I remembered to do this because it was needed. I really hope you liked the painting. I hope you've enjoyed another episode of the Scene series. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you on Sunday for another video. Bye bye.